Aloha, Chervin here, and welcome to the Waking Hour. This is our moment in time to wake the fake up from the illusions that are holding us back from living in our full power. As Alvin Toffler said, the illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read or write, but those who cannot unlearn the many lies that they have been conditioned to believe and seek out the hidden knowledge that they have been conditioned to reject. I invite you all on a journey of self-exploration where together we unlock the keys to living the best life ever. Welcome, brother Aaron, to Wake the Fake Up.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's good to see you in the material. We've been kind of dancing around this crazy, weird internet social media thing for a while. We've met in the physical a couple of years ago, and I've been following what you've been doing. And I'd like to say that you're a very big inspiration for me in terms of the way that I'm approaching my everyday life, my physical approach, and now really tuning into what you stand for, you know, and you're living in an expanded consciousness without fear, without limitations, without all those things that, you know, is right up my alley in terms of, you know, subjects that I like to talk about and expose beyond the cliche statements. Yeah. And for me, you know, I come from a background of fitness and, you know, varsity sports and semi-collegiate sports, and then getting deep into bodybuilding and building all this muscle and, you know, going in, you know, I was weighing 220 at one point and I couldn't scratch my back, and to then suffering injuries, you know, getting, you know, injuries here, you know, micro injuries because my body just was not moving. And starting to look at functional, you know, movement and all those things that you're embodying. Let's start there, and then let's reverse engineer into the good stuff. Yeah, okay. Sure. So where do you come from? What's happening in your reality? How did you get to become the person you are right now?
I think the root for me of getting at least into like the fitness oriented stuff was a lot of insecurity, which I'd be curious why you were into bodybuilding and insecurity, mass building in general. Yeah, which I think oftentimes we can start to almost lazily hang our hats on certain ideas, like, oh, I was insecure, and then we kind of build our story around that, and there could have even be deeper layers to it than that. Sure. So I'm also not completely attached to that story. Yeah. But a likely story that I have said many times, and hopefully we can unhash it to even deeper levels today, was just really feeling uncomfortable in my body, which the body, I think that sensation is symptomatic for the way that you feel perhaps in your home as a young person, maybe with parents, maybe with, you know, peripheral relationships. All that's going to trickle back into your general felt state of how at home you feel in yourself. And so my experience with that was just feeling, you know, I think all the things, not enough, feeling like unworthy of love, you know, walking into a room and kind of just feeling like I don't belong, you know, like, who are my people? You know, what's the point of anybody really connecting with me or giving a shit about me? Sure. Like, what do I have to offer this room? And I think was
this early? Was this like middle school, high school?
Yeah, or I still experience it.
You still feel it? Okay.
Yeah, I think most neuroses in general. This is borrowed from Ram Dass, among other people. He probably borrowed from other people as well. Mm-hmm. They don't go away; they just become more manageable. You know, and so I think that if I'm skeptical and suspicious of people that seem to be excessively pure, you know, and like, sure, I've dropped it. You know, I'm just totally free, liberated. I'm like, okay, maybe you are now, you know, but were you this morning, yesterday? Will you be tomorrow? Like, is this really a static state?
Is that even healthy to be in that state?
Is that even healthy to be in that? Because, yeah, I mean, everything's oscillations, expansion, contraction, light, dark, that's right, you know, stress, de-stress. Yep. Like, that's what makes a healthy organism.
Absolutely.
And so I think coming into acceptance of I had felt that way, and I still feel the kind of ghosts of that repeat themselves on an ongoing basis, but now it's typically much more manageable. Okay. And I have a lot more tools and resources, and, you know, material and mental, emotional validation, you know, to be able to see like, oh yeah, like, no, like, if I really examine myself, I'm like, yeah, I am worthy of being in the presence of people, you know, whereas I think at one point I didn't really have a lot of like the bullet points that I could come back to, but ultimately the bullet points are all just
where did you
stories
feel it?
As well.
Just think about your body. Where were you feeling it? Was it throat? Was it in your diaphragm? Was it in your overall existence?
That's a great question. I think generally, if I think back into that sensation, like historically, I think it was a general sensation of like collapse, almost like a ghostly kind of just like, whoa, like energy out.
Okay.
And so what I naturally, so come back into like the, the material, packing on muscles and creatine and all this stuff, I ended up hypercompensating and being fully, completely obsessed with bodybuilding. So I was like slamming protein shakes and bars and all the stuff every couple hours. I'd go into the, the high school bathroom. There'd be like protein powders and crap all over the sink. I'm like, oh, Aaron must have been in here, and just before I would take a photo, I would have to go and do some push-ups and pull-ups to get like a little pump in my muscles.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't able to be seen unless I was like big enough to be seen. Super interesting.
It's good speaking to a mirror right now and to really feel like I'm not alone.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I held that same capacity. Middle school, high school, I was always considered, like an athlete. And then this kind of like pretty boy energy was circling around me. And that was at that point, junior year, senior year. And I was kind of young for my age in high school. I was like, okay, it's time to get big. It's time to put some muscle on. As soon as I got in the gym, it felt good, right? Because all of the anatomic changes and the evolution of the body, especially at that age, 16, 17, 18, 19. But ultimately, it led me into a place where I was defining myself based on my size and my intimidation factor around people.
Yeah.
And that started to govern my psychology. It became psychosis. It became almost the perception of myself was how I perceived others perceiving me.
Yeah.
And I was walking around in that reflection mirror all the time. And by the time I was 23, 24, I was considered like an intimidating guy. I loved to fight. I was around the wrong people, no matter what the training I had at an early age. I was mentored early by David Avocado Wolf, my cousin. I lived off the land. I went through Steiner mystery schools. I understood biodynamics. I understood higher levels of attainment, all of those things. But I drifted into that, that kind of like trapped consciousness that revolved around my ability to blend in and to intimidate. And it was interesting because I look back at it now and I'm so glad, or I'm so fulfilled that I had that experience. And hearing you voice this and having me feel into that, there's more brotherhood bonds that are forming right now, because what we see in each other is ultimately the gifts that we can offer each other. And it creates that, I'm remembering you, right? Yeah. I'm really remembering you. So I appreciate you.
We're walking each other home, Chervin.
Absolutely. Yeah. We are. And that's what it's really all about, and when did you realize like, okay, wait, this might not be serving me. I'm not getting to the root issue. Let me offer some other type of variety to my life.
Pain and injuries.
Okay.
I think it's such a, it's like the wounded healer. To get to the point of being the wounded healer, you have to, if you choose, or if your environment chooses you, if you're forced into that position, which for me, typically my back needs to be like pinned against the wall to make meaningful change. So I'm like, I have no other choice. My joints are falling off. I have chronic pain. I have anxiety, like all these different sensations. I went through like bouts of being really almost like this interesting, disconnected, emotionless type sensation at one point as a teenager, where I wasn't, when I was feeling, people would be laughing about a joke and I would only be able to witness the laughter. And at that point, I was really into physiology and things of the sort. And I was doing personal training and teaching people about superficial fitness. But I would see laughter and I would think of it as more of this like neurochemical cocktail of emotion than actually being able to be present in the moment and the experience of it. And so I think that I got so far spun out and disconnected. And eventually that translated to injuries and pain, and then having to seek out guides, and then them slowly starting to kind of like coddle and open me up to reintegration.
Yep.
So I was fractured.
Yep.
And I'm still partially fractured. Like, sure. I'm not whole yet.
We all are.
And I'm also whole.
Yeah.
So it depends on which lens and what layer I'm looking at it from.
Right.
So I think that we have that capacity to instantaneously create change.
Yeah.
depending upon the lens that we're experiencing life through.
Absolutely.
So I think we're completely 100% absolutely whole. We're absolutely enlightened. We're absolutely
all of those things.
All of that.
Yeah. Wait,
and
so
we're also the other stuff.
You acknowledging that you're fractured.
Yeah.
That's all the freedom. I mean, that's pure sovereignty at the core of it right there. When you acknowledge that you are who you are, and you have the burdens, you have the injuries, you have the emotional complexities, you have all those things. When you look at it and define it and feel into it, do you feel free?
In this moment, it's actually quite liberating.
Yeah.
Because we can actually have a conversation.
Absolutely. Instead of just keeping it down and let's talk about all the good stuff.
Yeah.
Let's talk about all the things
like
that
how
we're winning at.
how sick my muscles are. My car's pretty awesome. My girlfriend's hot. Like, this is sick, right?
Yeah.
It's like, this is sick.
Yeah.
And then eventually, if we spend enough time and we get locked in some cabin someplace for a while, or we go through some near-death experience, or whatever the thing is, plant medicine, or just taking a walk that lasts more than an hour.
Yeah.
Like, you can only ride that superficial plane for about an hour.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Like, we've all got an hour.
Yeah.
Of us going through the chart of our various different
just an hour.
And like,
okay, that's it.
Yeah.
So it's 23-hour lockdown.
And so if we're going to record a conversation now, I would rather just ideally get deeper into those layers as soon as possible, but also not get totally stuck in those deep layers.
Maybe they're not prepared. They don't have the tools. They're using the medicine wrong. They're experiencing it wrong. They don't have enough guides. The pathways aren't open up.
Yeah.
They get bottled into that pain, and then it becomes a tragic ending because of the pain.
Yeah.
Yeah. The ego is kind of unraveling, doesn't know what to do from there.
But then I wouldn't. So we'll get into like some tangible, grounded talk about hip hinging or spinal mechanic stuff. Mm-hmm. But the one thing that I would hear when I hear the word wrong, to me, wrong is kind of like a sensitive word, because it's like, what is wrong
to the interpreter?
Yeah. So ultimately, all of the wrong doings, if I feel a way like, oh, I'm wrong, I'm making wrong decisions, that's just, you're putting yourself in a double bind.
Yep.
So you're just adding stress on stress on stress. So another lens or layer that one could go from with that of like, I'm doing it wrong, is just like, oh, I'm making these perfect mistakes to arrive wherever it is that I need to arrive at.
Sure.
So there's a guy called Boyd Vardy. That's he's has a lion tracking safari thing in South Africa. I'm doing a podcast with him coming up. He's very, very sweet human being. I really value his book. It's called The Lion Tracker's Guide.
Okay.
And an insight that stood out for me within that book was when he goes into, doing something wrong, dating the wrong girl or doing the wrong job or like wasting one's time in some direction.
Yep.
He said that's the path of what is he called? I think it's called the path of not there. Where it's like
not being present.
No. It's he doesn't say the path of not there. Actually, it's when he relates it to going into a cave, trying to find a lion, path of not here. So he goes in, tries to find the lion's not there. You could see that as a failure, or you could see that as, oh no, we've established that the lion's not there.
He's got to be somewhere else.
It's the path of not here.
I see
it's
that.
Perfect.
Yeah, interesting.
So as opposed to so it's everything, it's all the operating systems that we're running.
Yeah.
So you have the choice of going into that cave, wandering through, you got the flashlight looking around, you get there, shit, there's nothing.
Yeah.
And so you could see that as like, oh, I'm wrong. I wasted my time. It's like, or you could just immediately jump in over to the other lens, the other operating system, and say, oh, this is the path of not here.
Absolutely.
Perfect. We've made progress.
Yeah.
So for me, it always feels very, I think happiest or best when I feel like I'm making progress. And
so
that's just a nice
how
way
we
to
resist failure and how we were resisting what we deem to be success or not. I mean, looking at everything overall, I mean, obviously, I wouldn't say the majority of the population is taking time to looking through the in-depth awareness and psychology that humankind today has been, basically funneled into. And that is pain, anger, frustration, and bottling those emotions down.
Yeah.
And instead of addressing it, we're going through the symptomology, and we can see that in all aspects of psychological warfare. We could see that in our food and nutrition. We could see that in pharmaceutical drugs. And it's always trying to mask everything, putting duct tape over everything. What you're talking about is the opposite. It's seeing it for its beauty, right? And challenging yourself to sit in it and see what comes of it.
And so this eventually will lead into the grounded material biological conversation or physiological conversation, structural, postural conversation, because how many people really feel at home in their bodies? How many people feel maybe bound up in their bodies, maybe feel kind of trapped, maybe feel stiff, maybe feel rigid? Like an interesting exercise that I include in my book, The Align Method, is going through each of your major joints and giving them a few adjectives. So describe your ankles, describe your knees, describe your hips, describe your spine, your shoulders, your neck, and literally write them out.
Yeah.
You know, so my hips, how do your hips feel? How do your hips feel?
My hips right now feel more flexible than they've been in a long time.
Right.
But they're still, I would say they're still stiff. I can honestly say that. So I'm glad we're getting here. This is perfect. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm dealing with, for the first time ever in this body, something called sciatica. I've never had it. I've never experienced anything like this. It's shooting down my, lower sacral. It's going down my right hamstring. It's going down my right butt, down to my calf. And it feels like searing electric pain. And all day yesterday, I was stretching my psoas, and I got some work done on it. I got some adjustments, but I'm dealing with that right now. And it's really kind of fucked me up in a sense emotionally, because I was ready to kick ass this week on the beach, in the gym, moving around. It's caused a conscious in me to kind of fold a little bit, where I'm starting to feel uncomfortable in my body.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's interesting to sit in that, and really start looking at, what reality could look like for other people.
Yeah.
Being in pain. We take walking for granted.
Yeah. Or take everything for granted.
Take everything for granted.
Yeah.
So what do you think?
So, one, we can actually talk about working with the sciatica and determining whether it's a nerve impingement happening around the lumbar spine, or if it's just like a pseudo sciatica or piriformis syndrome, which is more common.
Which is the tightness of the piriformis that runs on the quad, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So if that piriformis can get stuck in a hypertonic, bound up state, it can start to the sciatic nerve literally it perforates through that piriformis muscle.
Right. I heard a percentage of the population it goes
don't.
through.
Yeah. And it's not everybody.
It's not everybody.
Yeah. With some percentage, it literally is. It penetrates through that muscle bundle.
How do I find out if I fall into that category?
We can do some stuff afterwards and examine and see if it's coming.
Yeah, let's do that. I feel like that might be the case, but I'm not going to just postulate on that. But keep going.
Yeah, so there's a few different routes to go. One would be first coming into this place of, sounds perhaps kind of annoying, but coming to a place of as opposed to being mad at yourself or mad at the piriformis or the sciatica or your decisions or whatever, coming to a place of like, okay, cool. Wow, information. Like what a great, I got information.
Yeah.
It's the form of a searing electric pain that's going down the back of my leg.
My body can
is it
talk
pain
to me.
or is it communication or is it just language that's expressing through my body?
Yeah.
And I'm learning how to communicate with it.
Okay.
If I'm speaking language or having a conversation with somebody, we speak two disparate, separate languages, and you're speaking French, I'm speaking Pig Latin or whatever, and we're like, I can't hear. It's like,
yeah,
but there's other levels. One, I can maybe get some anatomy textbooks. I could go to PT school or massage school or whatever, hang out with some PTs or therapists and start to learn the anatomical language and say, cool, okay, I can have this coherent conversation.
Yeah.
Or maybe I could start to be like, I'm not going to do that. I don't feel like I'm an accountant. I don't, it's too separate.
Sure.
I could start to listen to the gestures from that person. So I say, okay, like what, if I'm really listening to this, like what is my body saying?
Yeah.
What your body says, your body does not hate you.
Right.
Like your body's not here to attack you. Your body is on your team.
Yeah. Where I'm not separate from it. My consciousness is my body.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's continuous.
Absolutely.
So that's major.
So, okay, no, that's huge. That is it right there. Actually, it's
a big part of it. There's a lot of it, but that's one of a major it for a lot of people. That for some people they might hear that and say, "Wow." For some people they might hear that and say, "That's some airy fairy shit. Like, give me some external rotation exercises." For those people, I say, "Yes, let's do that.
Sure.
And there's a whole plethora of different doors to enter this human experience conversation from.
Yep.
If you're more Western, linear, Roman Empire, anatomical structure, right angles type mindset, your engineering mind, perfect. Let's talk engineering. And that's the conversation that we'll move from.
Absolutely.
If you're more meta and you go to your house and there's a bunch of crystals and it's like different, that's like, okay, cool, let's talk about maybe like the felt sense of your physical experience. And that's your door.
Yeah, communicating with it and feeling into it. Yeah, why is it speaking to me? For me personally, I view my lens through the triangle, which is a balance between both of those. Right. So
Me too. I'm a big fan of both.
Absolutely.
Because they both inform each other.
Absolutely. So let's sit in the middle of it and let's communicate to it.
Yeah. Yeah. So for starters, coming back more into, is brass tacks a term? Brass tacks?
Yeah.
It's like an old man term.
Yeah.
Come down to brass tacks.
I used to say that a while.
The word that popped up to my head.
Yeah. Let's get down to brass tacks. Right. Like, let's get down to the fucking truth right now.
Let's make some.
I used to actually say that. I used to slam the scotch down. Let's get down to some brass tacks.
Fuck yeah, brass tacks.
Yeah. It's a Sopranos thing too.
Isn't it funny how language just pops up into your mind?
Absolutely, it's coding, right? It's all coding. I say brass tacks. All of a sudden, I have visuals of being in New York and really being around some crazy fucks and having that. All of a sudden, I haven't thought about these people in 15 years.
Yep.
Wow, trippy.
And the way that you move. So we'll come back to the brass tacks, but it is interesting who's controlling and governing our thoughts and our decisions and our movements, because you can track those decisions to make those movements seconds before they actually manifest themselves. Okay. And so you think you're making decisions, but in fact, that's all being tracked before the movement comes out.
So the monkey mind, so slowing things down a little bit and just kind of being present with self, as opposed to just unconsciously just moving and
most
and
of us
around.
Are operating habitually.
Yeah.
There's different statistics.
Like
80% of our day is just based off of habitual patterns from the last several months or years or childhood.
Yeah.
So in large part, most human beings, I'm speaking for myself only in this case, because I only speak for myself. Okay. I'd imagine most human beings are essentially automatons.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're just operating. I'm in the car and I just my hand. I have this like ghost limb reaching out to my cell phone, looking at notifications. And I'm hungry. It's like, are you hungry? Yeah. Or are you just habituated to eat because it's noon or whatever?
Right.
And then you fast for a few days. You're like, wow, that hunger pang that went away in like 30 minutes, and I feel much better now that I didn't eat. Wow, what is the relation to my food?
And then new thoughts, new emotions, new creations can then become of that empty space.
You start to have the beginning of accessing some level of choice.
Yeah. Yeah.
So anyways, brass tacks. Something that one could do is beginning to examine or audit their home environment and say, is this environment conducive to a supple butt cheeks, supple piriformis muscles, and external piriformis and external rotator in the hip?
How I'm moving around in the house, what I'm sitting on, what I'm sleeping.
Yeah.
Am I encouraged to be stretching and to be standing and to staying mobile in this home and really examining the ecosystem that this body lives in?
And you can change the language to stretching and change it to feeding.
Okay.
Nourishing.
Yeah. Caring.
Yeah.
Committing.
When I think of stretch, I think of it in my mind goes mechanical, rubber band. Yeah. Cool. I got to stretch because I want to be stretchy. It's like, sure, if that's what you care about, be stretchy, stretch. Ultimately, what you're doing when you're stretching connective tissue and muscle fibers is you're opening up those cells, the bonds within those relationships, and you're allowing new fluid and hydration to perforate.
Right.
That's a healed tissue. A healthy tissue is a supple tissue.
Yeah.
Brass tacks, because I feel like we've spoken in a lot of like koans and metaphysical concepts.
Sure.
So your environment, and we can go back to all that stuff as well. You're the guide. But so things that people can actually do, listening home, if they do feel rigid, stuck, bound, stiff, dehydrated, drained, any of those sensations in their body, they wake up and they feel kind of just like all curmudgeon-y and stuck and brain fog, or their sleep is off,
stagnation to the highest level,
or chronic pain, or any of those things. They're all harking back to some level of disintegration or fragmentation and ultimately dehydration.
Absolutely.
And so examining, if you want, I just recently did a podcast with Bruce Lipton, the guy that wrote Biology of Belief.
Absolutely.
He's like one of my like childhood heroes.
He's like one of my idols.
Yeah, he's
absolutely
great. Gave me a jar of weed.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
he's growing up in Central Coast or
Santa Cruz.
Santa Cruz. Yeah. Absolutely.
One of the highlights of my life.
That's amazing. I mean, come on.
When I went home,
it's theta weed.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. Yeah. So anyway, that was a peak experience for me.
Fantastic.
But so one of the things that he describes in his book, Biology of Belief, which I highly recommend, is that when you're changing the state of a cell, you could do all the things that you'd want to do in the world of the cell, but it's not going to create any change until you actually change the constitution of the environment, the Petri dish.
Yep.
So if you start to augment that, then inevitably the cell changes.
Right.
So
how do we augment the Petri dish?
We need to spend more time on the ground.
Okay.
That's one brass tacks thing that just the human body thrives on.
So we're staying away from the artificial material mechanistic world that we've all been stuck in through this epoch or whatever dimension this is, and we get out onto the earth.
I wouldn't say staying away. I would say augmenting our relationship to be suitable for our own health.
Okay. So we're taking augmenting.
Away,
no, I wouldn't say stay away. We can't stay away.
Yeah.
But we're taking a position in our conscious of understanding why we need to be more connected. And the separation based on, it could be science, it could be based on your feeling.
Yeah.
It's causing dis-ease and disconnect.
Yeah.
And we're losing our suppleness.
And we also don't need to do anything. I'm like a language Nazi.
Okay.
So I apologize.
Bring it on. I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
We desire.
You desire.
I desire.
So first it's being honest with yourself as a listener. Is this something I desire?
Right.
Is this something that I need? Or am I allowing Chervin or Aaron or someone else to tell me what I need?
Right.
Because then there's a separation. It's not actually coming from my own inner voice. And so first coming in, it was like, what do I want?
Yeah.
What do we need? Do we even need to be here in the first place? Like, I don't know. People that say there's too many people on the planet might say no.
Yeah.
So first, like, what do I need?
Yep.
So, okay, what do I need? Let me sit on that. Fuck, what do I need? For me, I can say the things that I need.
When you ask yourself, what do I need? Are you able to go into, this is obviously, you've been doing this for a while. Are you able to get to the root?
The things that come up, and I was actually genuinely trying to ask myself in that moment, the things that I hear when I say, what do I need is connection, support, sensation of feeling connected to something bigger than myself. Those are the primary things that come up of like what I need.
Right.
And then when I feel fed and supported in those ways, then all of a sudden at a structural level, I can start to relax a little bit.
Okay.
How many people have had that experience? And we'll again come back to Petri dish, science, Lipton. How do we change our environment? What does it mean to spend more time on the ground and all that stuff? Because they put a little footnote, header, bookmark thing there.
We're augmenting and we're getting into how we're going to create the Petri dish in terms of maybe what you guys desire. Yeah. But keep going.
Yeah. So first coming into I think an authentic relationship with what it is that I individually need. Just ask yourself that question. And I'm saying that I'm saying that more to myself, which I think ultimately is what all podcasts and books and everything. We're just we're teaching ourselves lessons. We're like trying to learn as we're learning out loud essentially.
Right.
And so from there, it is an interesting sensation that most people have experienced in their lives, where when they are in a place where they're, Joseph Campbell, following their bliss, they're in a sensation of they really feel safe. They feel like they're on purpose. Like they feel like, wow, like I'm home.
Yeah.
Man, like I feel home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like that is a novel sensation for many, many people. Once again, speaking for myself.
Yeah.
I would imagine it resonates with other people.
No, speaking for myself, that is remembering, what I love and remembering why I'm here. Those are the aha moments in my life that stick with me, that are probably the most fruitful experiences that I've had that have catapulted me into 2 weeks of just absolute kicking ass, of 6 months of absolute kicking ass. And then I go and redo it and I recharge it. And slowly I'm taking things from it where it's becoming autonomous with my life and it's every day.
Yeah.
And so these are incredible tools. I would say, self-discipline and discernment for self. So not getting your coding from other people, but learning from their experiences.
Yep.
And then redeveloping that into your own conscious state.
Which is valuable as well. There might be a time where you really don't know what you need. Right. And you really are like your inner voice hasn't really been developed, and it's perfectly okay to piggyback on other people's voices who have developed.
Right.
And that's a part of being in a tribe.
Yeah.
So we're together, and I'm like, cool, there's certain things, I know without a doubt, there's certain things that you have mastered in your life that I have not yet. And you're further down the road. I'm not off the road entirely. I can just see your car or your go-kart, you're down there. I can see the dust, and I'm like, damn, Chervin's up there. Yeah. Like, how did he do that? There's like potholes and all sorts of weird, there's like, a waterfall going through the road. Like, how did he get over that?
Yeah.
So it's perfectly fine, I think, to be able to piggyback on other people's ideas, and then ultimately, eventually come back into the place of like, okay, like, who am I? What is my inner voice? Or am I just this whole conflation of a bunch of other people's voices?
Absolutely.
So coming into, how does this come back to the brass tacks biological stuff? When you're in that place of feeling on purpose, feeling at home, feeling safe, feeling loved, feeling like, it's like, wow, like this life is working.
Yeah.
The other day when you were saying you were out in the field and you were, picking mushrooms, was it?
Yeah.
And you're just like smiling, ear to ear, like, wow.
My greatest joy.
My guess is your ass probably didn't hurt at that moment.
No, of course not.
Wow.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Right. Yeah.
So when you're in that home state, where you're like, wow, I feel, wow, like not a care in the world. Like, man.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, cellularly, biologically, posturally, physiologically, those masseter muscles calm down, and the scalene, the neck muscles calm down a little bit, and maybe that impingement that was manifesting around your lumbar spine or your piriformis territory, whatever it may be, relaxes a little bit. And that's like, oh, cool. So, all right, so that's one channel to enter this experience. Next channel to enter from, maybe in order to arrive us in that home position, which from a joint level, you could call it joint centration or neutrality, or just finding balance in the physical meat body.
Yep.
You could find that home position in like the mental emotional body via mechanical, using a foam roll around your hips or a resistance band, or going through some self-care exercises, or going seeing a chiro, and that can temporarily shift the mechanics of the body to create enough spaciousness in your musculoskeletal system to allow your nervous system to start to open up enough of that, kind of like free itself of that static and that turmoil, enough for you to start to, oh man, I feel home in this body.
Yeah, like remembering a little bit.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden that will probably augment the way the decisions that you make throughout the day, the manner in which you carry yourself,
right?
Maybe the people that you spend time with. And so a big part of my background is working with clients, doing structural integration, rolfing. A lot of people might not know what that is. I'm sure you do.
Rolfing,
yeah. And so
had emotional breakthroughs through rolfing.
Lots of people do, man.
Yeah.
If you're really creating structural change in the body, then it will inevitably trickle into your experience of yourself, your identity structure, your relationships, maybe even your career.
Yeah.
Probably your career.
Yeah.
And so it's why a lot of spouses might feel insecurity about maybe their partners, like going to Burning Man or doing an ayahuasca retreat or something that sort. You might not come back.
Yeah,
we fit. We have this mold. You're not happy. I'm not happy, but we're not dead, and we're together.
Yeah.
If you start changing your mold too much and you come back and it doesn't fit, all of a sudden there's gonna be friction and we're gonna split. I don't want to do that.
Right. Yeah. That fear of that separation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's something that can happen. I mean, I've seen it, lots and lots of times with people.
Because there's just so much trauma, there's so much pain, there's so much emotion that's stored in the physical body.
And so
by freeing that.
Yeah. And so coming back, grounded material, what does that actually look like, mean in the body? what does your body do when it's scared? How does it express, I'm fucking scared right now?
Contracts, tense, yells, screams, gets sweaty, heartbeat up.
Right. What does it do if it's nervous?
Parasympathetic.
Maybe the voice, the tone, the pitch of the voice might start getting higher. You might start talking faster.
Yeah.
You might start your palms might get sweaty. Maybe your pupils might dilate. Your heart starts shunting blood to the big muscles to get ready to prepare to run out of the room.
Yeah.
That's real shit.
Yeah.
That's not meta woo-woo, pass a crystal over
survival,
your heart chakra.
Survival.
That's like
anatomics.
I feel unsafe in my relationship.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, I'm starting to have medial rotation of my shoulders and hyperkyphosis of my spine and forward head posture. And I'm in a defensive postural position.
Absolutely. And that could be happening every day for years.
Certainly.
To certain people.
Yeah. And then when I go into that conversation, when you walk into a room, there's a guy, Albert Morabian, who came up with a thing called the 55-38-7 principle back in the 60s.
Okay.
And
55-38-7?
So 55-38-7, which there's contention around every kind of research study, but what he found was that 55% of our communication comes from body language. 38% is the tone of our voice, and then 7% is the actual words. And what that relates to is if there's incongruence between those. So if what I say is incongruent with the tone, the pitch of my voice.
Meaning it matches.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, if it's incongruent, then it doesn't match.
Right.
Or my body language. So I'm saying like, wow, man, I really love being here, and I'm kind of like my hips are starting to face the door, or my eyes are looking away from you when I say that, or maybe I stutter a little bit or I choke up a little bit while I say it.
Yeah.
With 93% consistency, you're going to not believe me saying that.
Right.
And I don't believe myself saying that because I'm always listening to myself.
Sure. Yeah.
And so throughout the day, when we approach a new person, and this is relevant for business, this is relevant for relationships. Everything is a relationship, including the one with yourself.
Yep.
If you come into a room, you're out on a date with a new girl or boy or whatever, guy, and your shoulders are rolled forward, and your hips are kind of, feel stiff and stuck in your hips, and maybe your knees are kind of collapsing in valgously, and you just don't really feel like strong and powerful in your body.
Yeah.
How are you going to be received by that person?
That's the same way that they're viewing you.
You're going to say, who's this beta bullshit?
Yeah.
Or maybe they love that. Yeah. Or what are they hiding?
Are
they lying? Like, what's going on?
Yeah. What's your plan?
What are these layers? There's
like
layers and layers and layers with you. Like, what's going on?
It's interesting you're saying that because everyone calls themselves an empath, but I feel people based on their body language and the way that they're standing in their authority. And sometimes I have, pretty strong emotional reactions to the energy of people's just being around them. It can cause me to, get some type of energy where it makes me uncomfortable.
It would be impossible for you to be effective in your life if you were not empathetic to those signals.
Yeah, agreed. Yep, absolutely.
See, that's how.
That's the human response.
How many days and the more influential or popular or wealthy or whatever you become, the more deals and different vampirical entities coming in to try and pull your resources,
which is 24/7.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is also a story.
Yeah.
But within that, those individuals, if you're not able to be attuned to reading what's their actual intent.
Yeah.
And the way that you attune yourself to reading that is attuning yourself to reading yourself.
Absolutely. You got to know yourself first and understand your methodologies and your movements and your body language before you can gauge anybody else.
Yeah, everything is a reflection of your relationship to self.
Yep. Interesting. So your self-reflection is creating a baseline, like a biomarker.
Yeah, so it's a filter that you experience the world through.
Okay. Yeah, I like that. I think we can grow from that. So someone who's listening right now and is hearing our conversation is, they're probably like, holy shit, this is a whole new way of looking at life.
Or who are these fucking hippies?
Like, is this even real?
Also fine.
Yeah, no. Bring on the hippie mentality. Yeah. We are hippies. That's just whatever hippie means.
Yeah,
right?
That word got bastardized. We got rolled around in the dirt.
Totally. I love it.
So did God. So did a lot of perfectly fine words have just gotten disheveled.
Absolutely. If someone's listening right now, they're feeling into this. This could be quite a lot for them to take in. Yet at its purest form, it's so simple. right? I mean, that the most complex things in the world, if it's real, is actually the simplest things because it's just the truth. Occam's razor, the easiest answer is the easiest explanation.
Yeah.
And so I'm feeling into this because I'm having revelations here. You know, I consider myself a master, but I also consider myself a student 24/7.
Yeah.
And it feels good for me to have these reflections right now. I'm feeling good in my body right now, whether this nerve is kind of just zapping me a little bit like a red ant or not. I'm speaking back to it right now. And I'm okay with it. And I'm breathing into it. Whereas I might have tightened up my diaphragm and my psoas, and my shoulders might have came in a little bit, and I'm kind of like, just like, fuck, you know, and now just feeling into this conversation and getting some of this coding, right? Because this is a language, and it's being received really deep by me right now.
Right.
Yeah. So I honor you in that sense, and you're speaking things that I know, right? So I'm sure people listening to this, they kind of know this, right? Because it's our origin. It's who we are as humans, whatever that means. That's just a word, humans, but it's our right to have these experiences and to have these connections with self. What are we doing to evolve? How do we take this and go to the next level? How do we make this into an everyday practice? How did this become our life?
Yeah. Well, so the one thing that comes up as you're saying that of like feeling into your stuff. One, I think we don't need to just accept pain and say, cool, Aaron said, accept the pain and just relax into it and I'll be fine. That honestly, that might actually work like a pretty high percentage of the time. And there's also something that pain is suggesting something that you need to make change. So it's not like, the Tony Robbins has a thing where he's saying like, I'm going to sit back and manifest. There's no weeds. Like, no, you need to like actually go down to a hardware store, get some clippers, get some gloves.
Yeah.
Get there. Like you need
to make
pick
an action.
Fucking weeds.
There has to be an action.
Yeah. Like let's move.
Yeah.
And ultimately that's what your nervous system, when it's coming on into that kind of sympathetic fight flight, it's mobilizing your musculoskeletal system to move, to create action.
Absolutely.
And this is where the Western culture gets itself into a pickle because it's being mobilized. It's releasing cortisol and epinephrine and adrenaline and the whole different variety of cocktail of neurochemistry to mobilize, to move. We move ourselves out of danger.
Right.
We move ourselves into food. We move ourselves into sex. We move ourselves into shelter. Everything you do that matters, you move yourself into it.
Yeah. And there's that action.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And stillness is very valuable as well. But, it's like, yin yang, whatever. But when you're stressed, your body is signaling everything it can, all of your hormones and all of your, everything for you to get up and do some shit about it.
Right. But what do we do?
But when we're in Western culture, where we're predominantly stagnant, our movement to do something about it in large part might be, I need more money. Okay, how do I make more money? Get my face buried into my computer more. I'm stressed out. I'm worried about rent. I'm worried about that. Okay, still into the computer. Oh, God. Oh. Your body's saying, move!
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
it's screaming at you.
I'm giving you all of the wrong constituents for you to move your ass.
Yeah. I
need it.
Yeah.
And that's like EMDR therapy that was originally discovered from a female therapist. I forget what her name is. Do you know who is the?
I can't think of the name, but anyways, I saw a pamphlet on that actually.
Okay, and so what that was originally, and the details of this might be a little bit dusty, but going for a hike, walking through the woods, naturally your eyes are going to be scanning the land. You're going to be looking left, right, You're tracking your movement pattern so you don't fall on your face.
Right.
Ancestrally speaking, if you got yourself into a pickle where there's a lion, which is like the standard metaphor,
the danger.
The danger is there. you're probably going to have some eye movement to get yourself the hell out of that danger.
Right. Interesting. Okay, keep going.
As opposed to being stuck in place in one chronically held, stressed out position, because when we myopically focus on any one thing, it puts ourselves into this kind of like fight, flight, alert state.
Yes.
Your visual muscles are continuous with your central nervous system.
Yep. It's a loop.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And, I think your whole body ultimately is continuous with the central nervous system, but your eyes very clearly are.
Yep.
And so that would be an interesting thing where it's like, wow, man, if we live in a predominantly sedentary culture, and the petri dish that all of our individual cells, being, Bob and Frank and Chervin and Aaron, those cells, the environment that we live in is the way that we feed ourselves, the way that we, acquire sex and shelter and resource and all that stuff, is sitting still and looking into our phones and looking into our computers and, being in the office, the cubicle. Then how do I actually, from a deeper ancestral level, send the signal that I'm moving myself into safety?
You can't.
You can.
Well, I mean,
but in that model, it would be you have to make a conscious choice.
Yeah.
So, like, zebras don't get ulcers. This is Robert Sapolsky book. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
Like, they don't get ulcers because they're moved by an environment.
Yep.
Naturally.
Absolutely. They're forced.
Well, they're with.
Well, their genetics have created the ability for them to respond.
Yeah.
It's automatic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they're just in this pinball machine of response and reaction.
Yep.
And it just so happens that their hormonal system and, all of their systems is in perfect continuity and alignment with the nature in which they originated from.
Absolutely.
And
so they haven't deviated. They haven't gone into the cubicle. They haven't done those things.
Right.
And as soon as the lion stops giving chase, within 5 minutes, they're back to normal, their baseline.
Yeah, they go through the whole. They release that stress, and they have this cathartic, tremorous, purgative. And they
do the shake.
They
do the shake.
They have it out.
But we're living. There's no actual, figurative or metaphoric lion, behind my back right now.
Well, the lion might have formed when you were 3.
Yeah. So it could be something that's just been sitting there.
Yeah, lion might be ancestral trauma from your parents or grandparents.
So we're constantly in fight and flight?
Not we, maybe you.
Yep.
Maybe me.
Yeah.
Because we can't speak for anybody else listening.
Okay.
And so that's I've been again.
Let's code that a little bit. Okay, so when we generalize and we talk about the suffering, we talk about people that are living in poverty conscious or scarcity mentality or stress. Yeah. Are you saying when we're making a point about the collective, it's doing a disservice by saying we?
Yeah.
You feel that way?
Yeah, I don't like it.
Okay. Energetically, it doesn't.
Because I don't want to impose my story on anybody else listening.
Yeah,
somebody might be driving in their car and just like killing it, like trauma free, like they've done their work.
Yeah,
and they're like this bodhisattva enlightened figure, and I'm putting this we shit on them, and they're like, "Who is this asshole?"
Yeah. Why am I being lumped into that?
Why are you we? Speak for yourself.
Yeah. So have you experienced the ancestral trauma that has put you into any of that? Have you felt that? Speaking on yourself?
Almost certainly. And I'll uncover more layers as I go.
Okay.
I'm well aware that I don't know myself yet to its full entirety.
Okay.
Isn't
that beautiful?
It's great.
Yeah.
Takes the pressure off.
Yeah, it's exciting. To see more of yourself.
Yeah.
Feel in more
especially in situations like public environments where you're starting to, feel this need, by you, I mean me, to maybe be more like perfect and like pedestalize yourself and be like, okay, like this conversation, it's just this organic connection between you and I.
Yeah.
And it's also going to be a skeleton that lives on.
Yeah.
And it gets reinterpreted by other people. And it's like this whole thing. It's other people's after this.
Yeah.
So there's the present moment of this, and then there's the skeleton that will continue.
Yep.
And
it will take on many other forms.
Yeah.
And it will enter other forms.
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
Go on.
Yeah. And so within that, I think there's a subconscious kind of awareness of like, man, I want that skeleton to look pretty sick.
Yeah.
I want it to be a good looking skeleton.
It has to be perfect.
It's got to be perfect.
Shiny, chopped up to perfection.
Yeah.
Right.
Or when there's like more of an ephemeral, like, you're just having a conversation with somebody and it's just like, wow, this is me. it feels effortless. I don't have to like put up any front.
Right.
There's a certain level of pressure when someone takes a picture. Absolutely. Everyone's had that experience.
Sure.
You know, you're totally like, man, like I'm like, I feel sexy. I feel good. Like, woo. And then somebody gets a camera out and you're like, okay, get the boobs right. You know, get my shoulder, like, what's my good angle? And you become this bullshit version of yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, so I'm always trying to navigate that in these conversations as well. I don't know why I got on that thread. Sorry.
No. That's, I mean, I think you're really getting to the root of our psychology and just the experience of being human. And it's fascinating. I wonder, was this like this 500 years ago, you know, before the postmodern, you know, revolution and, you know, after the Roman Greek era? Like, when did this self-image or egoic complex or false ego or whatever we want to call it start to come and dictate our lives?
500 years ago, almost certainly. Like Renaissance and statues and paintings and people painting each other and mirrors and people, you know, dudes wearing high heels to show dominance and such, for sure.
Yeah.
That
was the.
But maybe if we go back like 5,000 years ago, probably not.
Yeah. We'd be in interesting times if that was the case. Well, so today, 21st century on the Gregorian calendar, we're hitting a high level of materialism. I mean, this is peak in this dimension or this epoch. It's become this whole thing. I mean, the social media craze and this butt revolution that's happening online. It's crazy. It's interesting because I feel a little bit part
revolution.
of that. You've not seen this? I mean, like,
no.
I mean, I get like
butt gains or whatever. What do they call it?
Well,
booty gains.
Booty gains.
Booty gains.
Booty gains.
I feel like an old man sometimes. I'm not at all. I'm very young, but like I feel like a curmudgeon-y old man with a lot of the trends
because not knowing what the hip thing is, or
yeah.
Well, I'm right there with you. But what I'm seeing is that this whole ass revolution is just taking form, and I literally.
Nice pun.
Well done. That's a good pun.
Well done.
And I gotta say, it's getting out of hand. It really is. I mean, I don't really comb around social media, but I'm seeing this new era, and I mentor some athletes that are, you know, 10 years younger than me. They're in that kind of world, that LA scene, that LA realm, and I'm just seeing all these women with the pressure of developing their ass and also surgically doing it too. And we're getting to that point.
It's not a good look.
It's
ass implants.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
It's just, and what I feel is I feel pain energetically. I feel the feminine just kind of falling all over itself to a certain degree. And the material world is just pumping this. It's just become such a big thing. It's all over the place right now. Are you seeing that? Because you're quasi LA guy.
Yeah, I'm in LA.
Yeah.
I'm in LA for the last almost 5 years.
Yeah. So what are you feeling in terms of, you know, we want to look good. We want to feel good about ourselves. We want to be attractive. We want to feel, I do. All right. I won't say we anymore. Yep. I want to feel good. I want to feel attractive. I want to feel best in my body and my form. I have my own ideas of self when I look in the mirror of what I see in myself and what I feel like I look good, and I'm giving that off. Do you think we're in an illusion time right now where women are, and men are caught up in some type of spell where they're losing part of their growth?
Yeah, no, but it's always been the case. I mean, even throughout the animal kingdom, their animals are creating a bunch of illusions to peacock, like peacocking. It's peacock feathers.
Sure.
You know, so that's been going on forever.
To attract the mate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's totally natural.
Yep.
You know, so I look at it with you know, more Ram Dass regurgitation, but more like love and compassion, like, oh, okay, I see. You know, or you feel, or ultimately, like, I think that's an interesting exercise. There's so many different things. I'm a big fan of conversations in and around the structure of the ass. One, I think that the ass, the reason that we're attracted to a healthy butt is it's an indication of longevity of the structure of that body.
Yes.
So one, obviously, like birth-bearing hips is valuable from a, you know, more like evolutionary perspective. But also that girl that's got healthy honking butt, the way that she developed that butt is through being able to cultivate high amounts of leverage through her hips.
Right.
If she can create leverage through her hips, she's an athlete, essentially. She's going to be able to hike and travel and move and do fun shit with you, and she probably won't need a hip replacement anytime soon. And so looking at that from an evolutionary perspective, a healthy butt actually totally makes sense.
Right. Yep.
And so then there's
trust there. You trust it.
Yeah. So one, totally makes sense. It's not just some weird, perverted, fetishized butt thing. Second, yes, now that does exist, but it actually comes from some meaningful evolutionary ancestral history.
Okay, so we can root it to that.
It's rooted.
All right. Okay.
So then the next level of that would be like the peacocking, and that's the person that drives the car that they can't afford to show people that they have money they don't have.
Right.
Impressing people they don't care about with money they don't have, the whole thing.
Yep.
So that's the same. It's the same thing. Happens in men all the time.
Absolutely.
It's just more overt when a girl's getting, a nose job or a tit job or a butt job.
It's the same thing.
It's the same shit.
Yeah. So
bodybuilding is no difference.
So I didn't want to isolate the butt. Okay. Yeah. But I was using that as the trickle down effect to where you're leading to right now. Is that this is everywhere. Everywhere.
Yeah.
Is this just part of our dimension? Is this just part of humanity? Is this just part of our connection to others? Is this part of the dynamics of being human?
It's one of the layers, and as long as we elect to choose that layer to exist on and to promote, then it will perpetuate. And I'm not mad at it.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
It is what it is.
So as long as the cultural zeitgeist chooses to ride that layer, I have the choice to look at a place and get my sphincters in a bundle and say, oh, butt implants.
Yeah.
Or say like, oh, like, what are you doing there?
Yeah.
Ah, I see. You feel insecure. You feel unlovable.
Yeah.
Or you feel like this is just a legit tool to level up your femininity, masculinity, power in the boardroom, or, you want to find a more prime mate. And that dudes are attracted to butts, so you're going to try to trick them out because you don't want to do the work that it would take to actually cultivate a healthy butt. So you're going to slap some bullshit on the outside.
Right.
It looks horrible.
It's terrible.
There's a subconscious awareness. You don't need to study anatomy and mechanics in order to know what a healthy hip hinge looks like. Like when you go see a stripper, or a gymnast, or someone that's like, or a figure skater, or any athlete.
That arch that goes into the butt, that arch.
Yeah. They're hinging those hips.
Yeah.
Keeping that long, nice spine. Like we see that, the man sees that, whoa, I feel blood going into my pants.
Yeah.
What you're actually seeing is you're seeing a healthy animal.
Yeah, absolutely.
We don't want to penetrate an unhealthy animal. We don't want to share the seed with that
at all.
And so we have all the story of who I got my Rolex, rolled up in the Benz, and like what, I got my Magnums.
I heard your picture me rolling. I heard your picture me rolling.
So you have all these superficial stories of who you are, what you think you're doing, and all that. That's one channel. It's great. Ride that channel as long or as much as you want.
Sure.
It's a fine channel.
Yeah.
And then underneath that, there's the ancestral channel of what you're actually doing.
Right.
I'm peacocking, you're peacocking.
Right.
And then there's another channel. You can keep on going below that. You can say, oh, maybe there's like the astrological channel. And it's like, oh, well, she's a Leo, and I'm a Cancer. And so this is
why I'm doing this.
It's the Saturn. It's part of the position.
Yeah.
And then eventually I'm starting to borrow this from more Ram Dass again. I'm obsessed with Ram Dass.
Yeah, good person to be obsessed
but eventually you keep on pulling those channels back, and you can elect which channels to view. But eventually you come back, and ultimately the channels will come back to me looking at myself, looking back at myself. So now that stripper, or that prostitute, or that drug addict, or that black guy, white guy, Chinese guy, my boss, the person killing me.
Yeah.
It's me looking back at myself, looking back at myself, looking back at myself. And then eventually you go behind that, and it's just a bunch of nothingness and open space and whatever.
Intention.
Yeah, but so something that again, that's getting into like the more like meta nebulous new age weeds. Something that's an interesting
quasi.
Yeah, and it's legit.
I mean, it's
totally legit.
I mean, we're starting to realize that you brought up Bruce Lipton and epigenetics. Well, I mean, it's starting to calibrate. We're starting to see the realities of these decisions and where they're coming from and how they evolved the species beyond it being meta.
Yeah, but a grounded. Okay, how the hell does any of this actually make me more money? Or get me a hotter chick, or radder dude or
greater my life, make me happy.
Yeah.
What's in my highest?
Well, we're attracted to people that have some semblance of comfort and satisfaction and control of their lives.
Right.
And if you're running an operating system that's inherently out of control and scarce and afraid, you push people away.
Yeah.
And so if you could start to just like a homework assignment people can play with right now, you might be listening to this in a grocery store. Look at the person that's checking you out, and like the checkout, the scanner, and or the person that's checking you out because they think you're handsome or whatever, and look at them as something that I'll do sometimes is I'll look at them as being like my mom or my dad, especially if they're like a jerk. So somebody else, I'm just like, oh man, I don't like that person. I'll look at that, and maybe they're like in like some state of destitution, or they're just like not.
You're feeling
not
into their
way.
pain, like what their experience might be.
I'll look at it and say like, oh, like what if that was my mom in that position?
Yeah, what kind of trauma? What are they going through?
I would look at her with all of a sudden. I'd look at her with this compassion. Yeah. Wow, I'd really want to be supportive to her because I don't want her to be in pain.
Right.
So that's a fun homework assignment, that if the world started to adapt that sensation of looking at people, because maybe looking at myself, look at myself, that's a fine homework assignment if you're into that too. But it might be easier if you see a man, look at them as your dad or your brother, or your best friend.
Yeah.
If you see a woman do it, mother or whoever you really care about, grandma, whatever. It might mother, dad. They might, maybe you have stuff with them that's not a good decision, but someone you really care about.
Yeah.
And then
someone that's home to you. Someone that's home to you.
Yeah, if you do have a mixed up relationship with your mom or your dad, maybe try to apply that to them, but with somebody that you really care about. And so I think ultimately, inherently, we're all coming from the same thread. And so there's all the story that gets laid on top of it, and then we get wrapped up in that because most of us lead with that, and we communicate on that layer, and we start to hate that layer or whatever that layer. Mm-hmm. But if you pull it back far enough, eventually you're like, oh my God, it's all the same goddamn fabric.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And if I hate you, then I hate me. Right. I can't hate you without hating
self.
Which that's a hard pill for a lot of people to swallow, including myself. And as I'm saying that, maybe I'll disagree with that in like a year. But where I stand now in this skeleton of conversation,
let's break that down.
I feel confident about that.
In order to hate, do you have to not care about your physiology and your mind and your heart in order to have the definition of hate off-gassing off you? Yeah. Because it's such a disservice to you.
Well, it's a layer. So everything is a filter, right? So I'm the sensation of hate for another person that's coming through the lens of my filter, and the filter, it's like looking through a kaleidoscope. Mm-hmm. Your kaleidoscope's different than my kaleidoscope. When you see this person through your kaleidoscope, you see love and, or maybe you see pain. You see that, wow, that person has such a hard journey.
Right.
Wow. I see, fuck that person. They're a jerk. They're greedy. They're
inferior.
Malicious. They're inferior.
They're off-gassing on me.
They don't deserve to be here. And bullies, man. Bullies are the saddest people.
Yeah.
And so this is my buddy we were talking about, Justin Wren, like UFC guy, just got a really cool foundation that people are interested in supporting something meaningful called Fight for the Forgotten. Dustin Poirier talked about in his last fight with McGregor, and he was telling me about a story on my podcast, breaking down this really heartfelt story. We were like both crying, and but talking about, he went to this party and he was like made fun of, and he was like a fat kid and all that stuff. And all of the peers at this party, they were like the cool kids. He was not a cool kid. They invited him as a joke, as a spoof. And he like dressed, they told it was a dress up party, he put on this costume Transformers thing. It's like a whole long story they told. It was incredibly moving. We got like endless messages writing back saying people they were crying and it was moving. And there's people that were going to end their lives and they chose not to because of listening to him speak about his experience.
That's what this is all about. That's what this is all about. Yeah, keep going. Wow.
And within that, though, when he got there, he's dressed up in his costume, and then all the cool kids are in the back. The like mom lets him in, and he opens the door, and he's the only one dressed up in this costume that he worked super hard to get. He like put these boxes and it was like a whole thing. It was like took him hours to put together, and they're all there waiting for him, and they're laughing at him and they're making fun of him, and it's just him alone. Like I'm tearing up as I'm saying it.
Yeah.
Like thinking like myself in that position, because we've all been there in certain ways.
Yeah. How old was he?
13, 14, something like that.
Yeah.
The worst time.
Yeah, for sure.
And then the cool bully kid comes up and tells him that what would make you think that you'd be cool enough to come here? And he said you should just kill yourself. And then he like breaks down, pulls the cardboard boxes off his body, runs out, runs to behind some Dempsey's or something like that, crying in a dumpster. The parents are looking around for him and whatnot. And yeah, man, like that's, I don't even know what the original thread. I got so wrapped up in fucking emoting about his experience. What was I even talking about? I had a moment.
I was him right now. I'm feeling and just.
But the
bully.
That,
okay,
man.
so the bully hurts.
The bully hurts.
The bully hurts. He has to be off-gassing so much trauma to push that onto somebody else.
Yeah.
And to be so unconscious in terms of how he's offering that.
Yeah. Yeah. So the bully feels unloved. Yeah. And so ultimately, anytime that I'm casting someone out, when I say you're bad, inherently, I'm putting myself on the other side of the scale, which means I'm good.
You're good.
I'm good.
Yeah.
The reason that I would do that is because inherently I don't feel good.
Right.
So when
so you need to act it out,
right?
Which is why. So is monkey mind? You're basically you're telling yourself, or you're lying to yourself, or you're
or not.
You're covering it, maybe.
Yeah. Well, the monkey mind is just whatever your programming is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're just habituations, and through things like maybe near-death experiences or breathwork practices, or maybe you did like plant medicine things, or maybe love, relationship, having a kid, life, but like kind of like peak meaningful experiences in life, or maybe moments that create a pattern interrupt, which are very important. We have pattern interrupts all throughout writing.
Yeah.
You couldn't be an effective writer if you didn't have great pattern interrupts, referred to as punctuation.
Sure.
And paragraph and sentence structure and now subheading and a chapter.
Because it's a new world.
It's a new
world. It's a new mind.
But in one's life, how often do we have punctuation in the form of pause? And just have a moment of like, okay, man, yesterday, today, last week, last month, last year, it feels like it all is just fucking rolled together.
Yeah.
I'm just rolling about. I'm just tumbling.
Yeah. Human doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just doing.
So once again, we have been entrained in this doing system. Not mad at the doing system. It's not bad. Like bad as a moralistic judgment is your choice based off of your story. So I'm not claiming it's bad or good.
What's driving it? Yeah. Who's driving the whole thing?
I think about that all the time.
Yeah. That's my main thing.
Yeah.
Is what's driving me to do this? What's at my core value?
How much of my thoughts are even my own?
Yeah.
I mean, I think we have moments where we feel like we're really. I think when we have those moments of coherence, some people call it like enlightenment, whatever. I think enlightenment's another word that's got a lot of barnacles, been rolled around a lot.
Yeah, so it's a little vague in my perspective.
Well, I think enlightenment just feels, you feel continuity with your brothers and your sisters and the earth and the trees, and you feel, like, wow, like I really feel home in this. I don't feel separate. Mm-hmm. So if I feel separate, then ultimately that's going to be a kind of a lonely, disconnected, fractured state of mind to be in.
Yeah.
But if you can navigate between enough separation, like you have that gear that you can function to have separation, to be like, cool, like this, Aaron needs water, Aaron needs food, Aaron needs to pay this bill, Aaron needs to keep his car in the lane.
Yeah.
So you don't want to just be full one love, rainbow colors all the time.
Yeah.
But also being able to oscillate, talking about the same oscillation as before, between, cool, Aaron keeps the car in the lane, Aaron feeds, the animal suit water, food, like does all the things, because I do have to take care of this aquarium.
Yep.
And ultimately, this aquarium is continuous with, we all came from the ocean at one point. I was talking to Robert Slovak, the water genius,
water wizard
yesterday, and he was telling me we were talking about what is it called, stoned ape theory and like the human dolphin theory. When you think like ultimately we all come from the ocean, unless you believe in creation, whatever, which is fine, whatever you're into. But if you do believe in evolution, probably the majority of people listening to this would be like on the evolution train. Ultimately, we spent the vast majority of our history swimming around in the ocean.
Yeah.
Like if we were like a string of a roll of toilet paper, our time on land, and then our time, it would be like a little slip.
Decimal.
Yeah. Before that we were, stardust or whatever. But like we've spent a lot of time in that, and the way that we are navigating this world, ultimately, like if you, what is it called when you burn your body when you die, when you get cremate? Yeah, you cremate yourself. You're just like a little freaking satchel of dust.
Yeah.
Like you're just a bunch of walking ocean. You're literally an aquarium
walking around
inside of this container that's holding all of your water.
Yeah.
So you needed the water. You were continuous with the water.
Yeah.
And then at some point we started popping out. There was some daring dolphin, what is it called when you can go on the land and back? Amphibious?
Amphibian.
No.
Yeah.
No. Is amphibian go both?
It goes both.
They both.
Or
it
could be a hovercraft.
But whatever. Yeah, exactly. They were able to get out, and the way that they were able to get out is they brought the ocean with them.
Okay.
So if you string it back long enough, it's like, wow, fuck. I'm just a walking aquarium that came out of the ocean millions of years ago.
Wow, with complex theories and ideas, and we got to switch lanes so we don't crash. We got to put food in this body, but we can also blast into parallel universes.
But it feels good if there is some inherent insecurity with this your you-ness, then ultimately a likely outcome of that would be to cast out others and make judgments on others and want to start to compensate through really building up your material reality.
Yeah.
So you can build the material reality from a totally healthy place. You're just great at playing the game. You enjoy games.
Yeah.
Right. Or you can come to a place where I have this insatiable, endless void where I just feel empty, I feel unlovable, I feel, all of those different things. And I'm going to keep on packing on superficial ways to be validated till eventually, from an outward perspective, I look really awesome.
Yeah.
And I'm on the cover of all the magazines, and I'm Forbes 30 under 30, and I've like done all of these things. The whole world's telling me how amazing I am because my superficial meat suit and credentials, I'm killing the material game.
Right.
Meanwhile, I've never actually had an opportunity to even have a moment with that deeper part of myself.
Yeah.
And now I'm getting thicker and thicker and thicker and thicker on the outside because the whole world's applauding my superficiality.
Yeah, so it's getting heavier on the outside.
It's very complicated.
Empty on the inside.
And then I have a midlife crisis, and I go through this whole thing, and I'm confused, and I feel like it's like it's a whole thing, and that's totally beautiful.
Yeah.
Because that's like your spiritual journey.
That's your karma.
It's great.
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely.
Because that's the lesson that person needed.
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to say is it's healthy to spend more time on the ground.
So that was
my
there.
long roundabout,
the whole
full circle, because you want to mobilize your hips because you want a supple bum. Real talk. Spending time on the ground. Cultures that spend more time on the ground. Northern Africa, Eastern Mediterranean, Southeast Asia, and there's other places. These places have been specifically studied with it. They have minimal to no incidence of osteoarthritis of the hips, very low in the knees. They don't have much joint issues.
Yeah.
Pelvic floor issues diminish greatly. Their bodies just work.
Right.
And so in
is that because they're moving it?
Yeah.
Right?
Also, those places have like Northern Africa, Eastern Mediterranean. They have a lot of olive oil around, so people are eating. I think it's oleocanthal is the specific compound in there. You might know it better than I do.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of different variables.
Arachidonic acid, long chain fatty acids, basically omega.
I brought you olive oil today.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, in reference to this conversation.
My culture, my Persian blood.
It's from your people.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, exactly. I should bring you some figs.
Yeah, you should.
Next
Pomegranate,
time.
figs, olive oil. I mean,
time.
that's our essence. This is interesting. I've I've been living on a mountain sanctuary in northern San Diego for the last 4 years.
Yep.
Okay, this is 30 acres, growing a lot of food there. All my psychedelics been growing there, all my cactuses, everything. And 80% of the day, I was living barefoot on the land. That was my meditation, along with some breath work, along with my saunas and my cold baths and, my Rudolf Steiner listenings and all that stuff, my, deep stuff. And, we had many ceremonies there. I've been in that world for probably 12 years now. And I moved from northern San Diego into Orange County, into, closer to the beach, but outside of having land. And that's when I started feeling some of these injuries and some of these hip things. I never had it there, not once. And I went through tragedy there with transition with my father. I went through all kinds of wild, crazy stuff. I mean, trauma. And as soon as I left being on the earth barefoot 4 years in a row, all of a sudden these little creepy injuries just started popping up.
Yeah.
Interesting.
We're like buckets of stress.
Yeah.
And so you have your bucket, I have my bucket. Different people have different size buckets depending upon their
what they can hold,
how big is your container.
Yeah.
Some people, certain, you don't really want to hang out. You don't want to be in like a bar fight with somebody with a shitty stress bucket.
Yeah.
Or like stuck on a mountainside or something like that.
Well said.
And those are people that, nothing against that person, they just have never had the necessity to develop the walls and the depth of their stress bucket.
The faculty has just not been practiced. Go ahead.
No, they've grown up in like a Nerf reality, which I to some extent have. You probably to some extent, like different people.
Sure.
There's
different levels.
There's levels to everything.
Right.
You hang out with some like Navy SEAL guys or whatever. It's like, oh, your stress bucket's a lot bigger than mine.
Sure.
And so that's when you go into a certain environment that is inherently de-stressing or purgative, or it's like it tunes your nervous system. You're in alignment with getting adequate sunlight through the day. You're getting your infrared light, and with the morning sun and the evening sun, you're watching the sunlight. It's it's setting your circadian rhythms. You got all the great levels of melatonins and stress hormones, and it's like, wow, like your wheels are turning.
Yeah.
You're eating good food off of the land. It's vibrating. You feel this deeper connection to something bigger than yourself, which ultimately could be nature. Ultimately, everything is nature, I think. But in that, it's like very apparent.
Right.
Like there's bears and shit.
Yeah.
Nature.
It's crystal clear.
Yeah. This is nature AF.
Yeah. AF, everyone.
Yeah.
AF.
Yeah. And so that is we got a sign. We got signage. What do they say?
We're saying we're 80 minutes in.
Woo! 80 minutes. What does that mean? Do we get prizes?
Yeah, probably. They throw some tassels.
I'm the worst when there's any type of peripheral stuff that's supposed to be like unspoken.
Yeah,
I immediately say it.
Yeah, it's
problematic.
Yeah, we have our beautiful staff is signaling us. Some of them are in tears from our conversation, but who gives a fuck?
Anyway, so we all have our stress buckets. And so what you experience is when you went into the next world, whatever, into Babylon, into the city or whatever it was, your body ended up being kind of starting to spill over the sides of that metaphoric stress bucket. And all of a sudden you're getting these flares of aches and pains and, various different signals. Your body's starting to have a conversation. You're saying, hey, bud, this is more stress than we can handle. That acute stress, that it was immensely valuable, great for cognitive function, great for tissue repair, great for stimulating the immune system. Yeah. Like acute stress is awesome.
It's the most important aspect of our physiology.
It's the best nootropic you could ever take.
Absolutely, 100%.
And so that's another thing, is gaining a relationship with saying like, oh, stress, like great. Like I love stress. Yeah. I'm all about it.
Yeah.
What I don't love is chronic stress.
Yeah.
And once again, my story of loving and not loving and all that stuff could perpetuate the actual physiological effect of that stress, because again, I put myself into that double-blind loop of like stressing about the stress about the stress.
You get stuck in that.
Yeah. So you can talk therapy, story your way back into a more homeostatic state. And you can also environment your way back into a more homeostatic state.
Yep.
You can exercise your way back. There's a lot of different avenues,
tools,
and different people will, teachers or gurus or whoever, authors, they might discover a road, and now they've built an entire ecosystem around selling you that road is the path to the promised land.
Yep.
And then they might have greater influence. And so now they start recruiting other affiliates and various different people because, we all want to be like that person. Whoever, think of some popular, guru type figure in culture,
right.
Whoever that would be for you.
Yeah.
Other people probably want to identify with that person. They start regurgitating what they say. And then other people trickle down from that, regurgitate what they say.
Right.
And now everyone's saying this thing,
yeah.
But ultimately it probably came from some narrow, tunneled lens of perhaps some guy or girl finding something that worked for them, speaking about it.
Yeah.
And then now with the way that consumer culture is now, starting to develop a business and a life around that.
Yeah.
And now it's like, man, what are these stories?
Yeah, yeah. This is everywhere. I mean, this is everywhere. It's everywhere I turn and look. It's some, ancient tool that's now got 12 different step process, and you can get it in 30 minutes.
And it's great. But it's very important to acknowledge. One, I think like many astute teachers and students, I think maybe Bruce Lee didn't say this. I've heard different people say this. Like take Ido Portal said something about this. Different people have said this. But to find your guru, find your master, find your dogma, whatever it may be, and just go balls deep into it.
Yeah.
Learn, go all like a centimeter mile in, and just okay, cool.
Yeah.
Even though this is probably a narrow lens, and this is just like I'm in my own tunnel vision.
Yeah. I'm
gonna take your your life experience, and I'm just gonna bow down, kiss your feet, and say, okay, teach me.
Yeah.
That's one approach that I think is totally great.
Mm-hmm.
And then another approach could say, okay, I'm going to do this poo-poo platter. I'm going to take from you and say oh, wow, I think these are all just a bunch of roads that are ultimately leading to the same place.
Right.
I'm going to pick and peel and pull. And that's more of like a Bruce Lee.
Yep.
Where he's, his perspective is that the individual is greater than the dogma.
Yep.
Or the methodology.
Yep.
And so ultimately it's I think it's, choose your own adventure. There's a lot of ways to do life. And I think all that really matters is that a person is engaging
and takes the first step.
Just engage.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You just got to engage.
Yeah. You just got to do
up.
it. You just got to do it. You just got to
wake the fake up, man. I'm talking to myself.
Well, you're talking to me and you're talking to yourself, and through that perception or that reality, we're sharing some type of ancient mysticism right now, and it's glowing intracellularly. I can feel it. Yeah, it's there's fire. There's also a lot of peace here. I'm feeling a lot of peace, and my body's just kind of dropped into a harmony, if you will, and I'm feeling perspectives, and I'm feeling inner dogmas. I'm feeling things that I've been so locked in because I feel it's the way, and everyone needs to know it. And if I know it and feel it, then it's got to be for everybody.
Yeah.
And that, in fact, has been killing me.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's been, it's been my Achilles. It's been my sciatica. It's been my theme of frustration. It's been my genetic code. It's been my human design, all of my shadows, all of that. And I'm feeling into your awareness and your hyper awareness. And it's been like a crystal for me in so many ways. And I appreciate it. Yeah.
I'll receive that reflection.
Reverence and respect and honor for the embodiment. It's like the voice in my back of my head speaking to me.
Yeah. Isn't that interesting? Thank you for saying that.
Yeah, of course.
And it is interesting how when we do get a thing, I think it's like this happens a lot of times with people that do psychedelics, and they go, they go to Ecuador or Peru or whatever, and they come back and then they saw God in the form of serpents crawling up their kundalini or whatever, and they come back. I mean, I'm joking. Those experiences are meaningful, but then that person can come back and feel like, wow, I need to share this.
Yeah.
I
have communicated with God.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
and then they get, their hop a pipe, and they get, crystal around their neck, and they start wearing flowy clothing and Erewhon,
right.
And they start doing combo circles at their house, and they they're like self-empowered into okay, I think I'm
I'm a shaman.
Yeah. I'm the bringer.
Yeah,
I am the pure channel.
Yeah, I'm the bridge. God chose me. We call this a luciferic archetype, which is a frequency of, I'm so shiny and I am the savior, and they believe that, and it's the ultra spiritualism where it's taking them off the ground and off maybe the practice and the indigenous and the culture and the thousands that have been doing it before them. And like you said earlier, great, maybe this works for them. Maybe they're making an impact. Maybe they're helping people. Maybe they're not, but it's when you're so stuck in the materialism or the Ahrimanic complex where you're just in the rat race and you're in the 9 to 5 and you got to make the money, and it's all about what's on TV and the media, and all of a sudden you get your ass blown wide open from ayahuasca or mescaline or a heavy dose of LSD or whatever. All of a sudden you realize that your entire life, your entire experience has basically just been a complete sham. And they probably don't have the tools to integrate properly. So it's become another offshoot of the theme of the materialism that they've lived in. They've just shifted it a little bit.
Yeah.
And I'm not speaking towards anyone. I'm not casting any direction, but it just seems to be an energetic theme in the culture of the New Age movement. And for me personally, I was brought into that realm through my cousin David Avocado Wolf. And that ripped me open in so many ways. And I had really sound integration after. I was able to go to our farm in Kauai and spend time on the land and really integrate what I just experienced, which is ultimately a cathartic samadhi near-death experience where I was just, blown wide open into the essence of who I was, like why I'm here. Yeah. I got real intentional after those experiences. And from there, it compounded into steady movements, steady studies, education, awareness, honoring my family to the highest level that I possibly could, really rooting into my Persian culture, knowing where my family comes from, who I am, how did I end up here as an American born in Southern California. It really opened those channels up. And with that awareness, I was able to create where I'm at right now. With some of these things, we're helping people and creating formulations that are helping people.
Where do you feel like you're at right now?
In terms of
just how do you receive that question? Where are you at right now?
I'm in a stage of my life right now where I'm still figuring out who I am. I'm still figuring out how to navigate. I immediately think of my father, right? My best friend. My life, and losing his body, and so I'm still in that swing, but I'm getting to a state of consciousness where I want to do good onto others, but I know that I have so much more internal healing to do where I can really show up authentically, and that's just me being real with you, and I'm in that stage right now, and I feel freer than I've ever felt. I feel like I don't need to be this show anymore. I don't need to be this face up. I don't need to. I really don't feel that. And it comes here and there, it shows up, but right now I'm going back to being 12 years old. Yeah, that's the playfulness, the excitement. That just gives a fuck about this stuff, and just really like being in a happy state of being in my authentic self. And I'm working through it. I'm working through a lot of trauma. I'm working through a lot of anger. I have a lot of, I feel like I've brought in a lot of anger in this life through generations and generations. My country, what's happened to my culture, what's happened, just
you probably didn't bring anything. You're just a continuation.
I'm continuating.
You have an opportunity.
It's in my DNA. It's in the goo. Yeah.
I'm not guilty. I am an opportunity. I'm a walking, breathing aquarium, water bag of opportunity.
That can change the percentage of hydrogen at any second.
That too.
Yeah.
The reason I was saying all the shamanic stuff about the person that goes and does the thing and then comes back and they're in this, Christ-like position is, who said beware of knowledge unearned? It was like,
that's a great quote. That's
it wasn't Rumi. It doesn't matter. The quote's the meaningful part. People Google it. but beware of knowledge unearned.
Yep.
Maybe he was, it doesn't matter. And so I think that's something that often happens with that. And so when people are overly kind of high and mighty about all that they know, and then you could run this as a game, be like, cool, I'm going to play, fake, humble, vulnerable game because I've learned that if I'm too braggadocious and strong and proud, then that denotes that. Sure. So there's different layers of peacocking or virtue signaling.
There's a poetry to it, I would say.
Yeah. And so that's, we can confuse ourselves in our own like authenticity or attempt to be authentic.
Sure.
If you're really authentic, you don't realize you're authentic.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You don't do authenticity.
Authentic, you don't realize you're authentic.
Yeah.
You don't see it. You're just it.
Yeah. You're just, yeah.
That's like Ram Dass. I mean, I'm
sure he's, all sorts of different versions of that.
Yeah.
Most of the things that I say, if there's anything that I say that seems in any way like, oh, that was pretty cool. That sounds kind of like, philosophical.
You get a kick out of it.
No, I'm saying if I do, it's pretty much, you could just thank Alan Watts and Ram Dass.
Okay.
I take 0% claim for anything that's manifested through this conversation. It seemed like, that was all right. That was like probably one of those two figures. With that person that's in that position, and the idea, beware of knowledge unearned. They can be very dangerous, because ultimately they likely will cultivate some level of cult following people around them, because that's what they're attempting to create, and their pain and their all their different baggage and twists and turns and
drops into them.
Levels. So you can't teach what you teach what you are. So I personally I do notice certain little semblances of like, oh man, like cult following, that's cool, like follow me. Like that can feed a certain layer of like, okay, that means I'm worth following. Okay, cool, that means I'm worth loving. That means I'm worth it. That's a good sensation. And
you also sense responsibility.
Well, yes, that too. Which ultimately the teacher is the best student, because they have the accountability, which is like a great. If you ever want to learn something, become a teacher of it.
Right.
Writing a book. I wouldn't want to write a book that I knew. That's why, like in the book I wrote last year. Some of the chapters, like the last section of the book is called. I don't know what we call the last section, tuning your senses or something like that, tapping into your senses. And it's chapters that I've just been really interested in.
Yeah.
So it's how to tap into your visual muscles to be able to regulate your autonomic nervous system.
Yep.
How to tap into your auditory muscles. How to tap into your sensation of touch. Mindfulness. Like all these different things that I'm like, oh, I'm not the master of this. I would just really super
you wanted
interested.
To learn about it,
and so I'm going to write a damn book about it.
Yeah, so that made you become a master for it.
Well, I'm more masterful than I was before I wrote the book.
Right. Yeah.
And I had a co-writer help me, and I had tens of different world leading experts of various different sorts review and revise each chapter, which I'm so immensely grateful for all of them. They're all in the acknowledgments and everything. So that book is such a small percentage of like Aaron Alexander, maybe 20% Aaron, maybe, and then the rest of it is just me being immensely grateful for the brilliant minds that were willing to contribute and be a part of it. But
I appreciate you saying that. That's beautiful. Yeah, I honor all that.
That's always what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. That's fucking rad.
And how much, what an awkward thing to take take absolute responsibility for every decision that you make in this conversation and your relationships and all of that.
Yep.
But also don't take responsibility egoically.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also be willing to pat yourself in the back and say, man, like be a good parent to yourself. Say like, wow, man, like you've come far.
Yeah.
Like have a moment.
Love yourself.
As opposed to being continually in that place of, okay, I will be happy when I get to this point, or, I'll be worth it when I get to this point, or man, that's like, what am I doing here? If I'm not continuing to like work and progress and forward and it's like, if we're always in that place, we might miss the opportunity throughout our lives to ever actually appreciate anything.
Absolutely. Yeah, this is exactly what I talk about on a daily basis.
It's important.
This is hyper-presence,
best I can.
Yeah, absolutely.
In the moment.
Yeah,
I'm sure I could potentially, there's layers that could, unfurl deeper, but this is the best I got right now.
No, it works to perfection. Okay, so let's
hold on.
No, okay, keep going.
I wasn't done.
Keep going.
With all of that, the reason I started any of that stuff, I feel like ultimately the greatest teacher isn't seeking any type of following or cult or anything. They're just like that forms around them.
Yeah,
it might even be against their will. It's just like, yeah, there's just like Jordan Peterson is an example of this, where he's just like, he's like
what just happened? Yeah.
You've been teaching at this university, and your mind is clearly like the matrix is pretty complex, well integrated, and he's got his foibles and his neuroses, and he's got his all sorts of issues.
Sure,
like we all do, just different flavors. But he would be an interesting example of that, where it's just like, I'm just doing my life. And now I'm here, I'm a part of this movement, and I said some things, and now there's this following of people that are clearly interested in what I'm saying, to the point they're filling up stadiums just to hear me talk about religion.
Yeah.
Like, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's like a legit Christ figure.
For sure.
And
that's his authenticity.
Yeah.
Yeah, it hasn't been stacked up by PR.
Yes, but then we come back to the same butt implant conversation, where now there's this cultural pressure to, well, if I don't have, at least 20,000 followers on Instagram,
I'm not worthy.
Yeah, I don't have 20,000 people that want to hear me fucking talk about insightful shit while I take a poop.
Yeah.
I'm not worthy.
Yeah.
It's like that's like no. Like, you don't need any of that.
Absolutely.
Live your life. Yeah. Like, live your own mastery to the highest degree that you can. Deeply engage.
Yeah.
And from there, through your deep engagement and your experience in this lifetime, perhaps people start to say, wow, like, man, you're really in this life.
Yeah.
Like, whoa, like, what are you doing?
Yeah. I want a little bit of that secret sauce.
Yeah, like, what? And then so that's like, okay, cool. Mm-hmm. Now, great, we begin. Like, now you're starting the beginnings of being like, okay, cool. Like, they asked. It's like a vampire coming into the house. Like, they need to ask. And then once from that, now we have a meaningful conversation, as opposed to coming from a place of like, okay, I'm going to do all this kind of, judo bullshit to get you to the point of like drinking my secret sauce.
Peacocking. Okay,
yeah.
So I love the asking for permission. I love that, because that's real. That's intrinsic. I'm reflecting on self. My whole thing, I was just showing what I was doing every day.
That's great.
How I approached, my life, my perspective, my relationship with my father. That was, growing food, traveling to some cool places, going to the farms, extractions of all different forms of alchemy and stuff like that. That's how this thing grew. That's how Cymbiotika became Cymbiotika.
Yeah.
I didn't have a team. I didn't hire a social media staff. It was rooted in authenticity and a lot of vulnerability.
Yeah.
And
you're probably finding your own authenticity
through it. Yeah. It drove me to get more real.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I can see myself, right? Yeah. And I can see others perceiving.
So interesting to be able to tune yourself through video and audio.
Oh my God. It's
very fascinating.
Fascinating that the technology is here for that, and what that means to the brain and all of the bodily processes. That's the epigenetic code.
Yeah.
We might be going towards a triple helix at some point in our chromosomes.
But to a sociopath, or someone that is like disconnected from some deeper meaning or connection or like feeling or empathy, it could be dangerous, because they can be a more well honed in personality.
Yep.
that expresses in very what seems to be, they're doing all the authentic signals.
Yeah.
They've tuned their physiology to be able to wink in the right way, or use their facial expressions in the right way, or their gesticulations and their mannerisms.
They've mastered it. They've mastered the whole thing. Yeah. Which is interesting. Which we probably all have a sliver of that archtype in us.
I think so.
Yeah, it's
you're
part
learning
of the human
you're learning
condition.
how to be a human.
Yeah, it's part of the human condition. It's interesting. I can keep going on this. This is so good. We're probably going to have to do another. Well, I'm going to be going on to your podcast, which what's the name of your
Align podcast.
Align. Well, perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect name. Align.
Yeah, align your shit.
In alignment.
Align your kundalini.
Align your.
That's our subtitle.
Your fake butt.
Yeah. Get your
Yeah.
Exactly.
What is that made of?
I don't know. Probably some kind of like saline
or stuff.
Gel. I don't know. A gel.
I do know that they're taking fat from somewhere else and putting it in there. So it's like a redeposit of fat, but wouldn't that fat metabolize?
I don't know. I don't know enough about butt implants.
Unless they use like certain acids with it that buffer, so there's no signal to metabolize that fat. A woman's fat butt is there for pregnancy. I love talking about these things.
Women need fat, BTW.
They have to need. Yeah, they need fat.
Like the way, like if a woman wants to have a healthy menstruation and have just healthy hormonal patterns, like you need fat in your body. It's very important. If you're a person that has bought into the idea of being runway model, like starving yourself.
Yeah. You're in trouble.
That really goes against what your cells desire at a deeper level. That to me is I don't know. I think it's sad. I don't know. I have to kind of like weigh into how I feel about that. But I mean, it feels like that's a travesty.
Yeah,
that young people especially are sold the idea that something that is inherently destructive to my mind, my body, my emotions, my cells, this is the thing that somehow culture configured it to be the thing that young girls need to strive towards.
Yeah.
And it's the same with men as well. It just looks different. It's more apparent.
It's more apparent with women.
Women, all these stories are much more apparent. It's really very similar both ways. But that to me is like crap.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just like what they did to tobacco. It's just like what they did to cannabis. It's what they did to soil. And they've taken things that are so pure and they've completely reversed it. And you hit it right on the nail with women. And, they can't properly produce certain biochemicals and hormones without that.
Yeah.
Thyroxine, for example, they can't metabolize certain things. And all of a sudden they go into a litany of, we call them autoimmune, but it's so beyond autoimmune. It's so deep.
Edward Bernays.
Yeah.
You heard of him?
Yeah.
Cousin of Sigmund Freud.
Yeah.
That was his whole thing. So he was big on the whole cigarette advertising and giving bunch of chicks. I don't think I can say chick. Isn't that like offensive? I like chick.
So. I like
There's certain words that I like.
It's like a hot chick.
Yeah, hot chick.
Yeah, chick's the best ever.
It's all context.
She just came out of her womb.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So he gave a bunch of chicks cigarettes, and they're walking down this parade, wherever the parade was, and it was a statement of them showing their dominance and their masculinity and their empowerment. So they called them, what do they call them? They call them freedom sticks, I think.
Interesting.
Yeah. So Edward Bernays is his whole thing. He's known as the father of modern advertising. And so as opposed to advertising, why this cup is good. This cup it's sturdy. It's got a big mouth. It's whatever. Yeah. The threads or they'll last a lot. Whatever.
Good
it's like
grip. You can hold it.
This is a good hardy cup.
Yeah.
We're like, we don't care about the cup. What does it mean? Who am I if I buy this cup?
Yeah. What does it do?
How does this inform my identity?
Yeah.
And that was the big. Oh, okay. Yeah. Interesting. So if I have a Mac, I'm like a Mac guy.
Yeah.
What does all that mean?
Oh,
it means,
fancy.
I'm probably a little bit wealthier.
There.
I'm creative, I care
yeah.
about, like aesthetic.
You're a little hipster. Yeah.
If I'm a PC guy, it's like I might be kind of dorky. I'm into like,
you could be a little genius
and whatnot. Maybe I don't have a lot of money. And there's a lot of different virtue signals. And so now most of advertising is primarily around virtue signaling, showing other people that like we're, a little bit better than each other.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's so crazy. That's everything. We're surrounded by it.
Yeah. We're continually striving to be a little bit better than everybody else.
Wow.
If you're too much better than me, that makes me uncomfortable.
Yeah.
If I'm too much better than you, what the fuck am I doing with you?
I don't know. We got to keep that delta a little bit closer.
That's the game. It's infinite games versus finite games.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. So
we're unbelievable.
Yeah. So we want to play games that we. Ultimately, the difference between, it seems like we were going to wrap this thing up soon, but the difference between an infinite game and a finite game, there's like a closing point to the end of it. I want to smash you.
Yeah.
An infinite game, or that's a finite
that's
game.
That's a finite game. Yeah.
An infinite game is we want to keep it going. So how do we
support each other?
Yeah. How do we support each other? How do I support my competition enough?
Yeah.
You see this with rats as well. When rats are wrestling each other, there's a guy called Yakpanskep is how you say his name. And he's I don't know if you've ever heard of like rats being tickled.
No.
They've got like, so he's studied a lot of play within rats and humans, and there's actually a play circuit in the brain. And one of the things he found with rats is rats, if there's a rat that's something like 30% bigger than another one, then they're going to win their wrestling matches, with most of the time. And so they would actually have to allow the smaller rat to pin them on occasion, or the smaller rat will stop playing. And so that's what we're doing in this game of life in general.
I like
that. How do we keep this going? How do we keep engaged? Because if I'm just, King Kong asshole rat, then the
whole
friends.
Show shuts down.
Yeah.
Consumerism shuts down.
Yeah. So hence why we're continually seeking out different cliques and tribes that kind of match our skills, wealth, influence, intellect, all of those different things, so we can just keep a nice infinite game going. Because if the game's too boring, then we start to disengage.
Yeah. This was a powerful introspective experience for myself. Again, I appreciate you coming down here, taking a little trip down to Orange County.
That's great. 54 minutes, not bad.
Yeah, that's nothing.
Listen to a podcast.
Yeah, and I look forward to being on your show.
Yeah.
And I look forward for doing this again.
For sure.
Let's just keep going, man. Let's keep unraveling the mystery of life.
I'm game. I'm with it.
Yeah.
I'm here for it.
Yeah. My openness and willingness to dive into the deep unknown is where I'm thriving right now as a man.
Great.
Yeah, and this is it. What the hell else are we doing?
Well, there's more quotes about that. What was it? The cave you fear to enter holds the treasures you seek. Joseph Campbell.
Bam. Yeah.
JC.
Yeah, that JC guy.
JC.
All the treasure is in there, and the fear and the dark. Yeah, let's go play in it.
Yeah, I've got a bunch of it to jump into.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. So if you're listening right now, Aaron wrote one of the most epic books ever. I'm going to go dive deep into it. And I love how, you said this is a, summation of so many moving parts with so many moving people, and that, your desires of putting, your topics that you were so thirsty and hungry for, now that you went, researched them, you had them fact check them, you had them add to it. So this is basically, what do you consider the Align method? Just like
Align method, essentially, the way I've been describing it is, if you were an alien and you were entering into this human suit for the first time ever, the Align method would be the quintessential manual on how to effectively operate the human suit, ranging from, leveraging your senses to optimize your hormones and your energy levels, teaching you how to sleep and wake up and all of the things. They're all handles, they're all toggles that most of us were never given an education on.
So it's a blueprint, if you will?
It's a blueprint. That's a great language. Yeah, I like that. And it also gets into the mechanics of how to effectively create leverage in the body.
Okay.
So if you didn't know anything about being in the body, this would be the quintessential blueprint on how to effectively operate your human suit.
Epic. I love that. Best ever. So needed.
It's important. We never got that education. It's very strange. Yeah. You get, manuals on how to drive your car and work your computer.
Long division, which is really needed.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, maybe for some people it is, but it's really incredibly interesting to me that we really never, in the school that I went to, never really got any education on really how to effectively drive your body in day-to-day life.
Yeah.
Like body language.
Yeah.
If you want to sell some crap, figure out what's the positioning of your body as you're communicating.
Yeah.
How are you not taught that in school?
Right.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
If you want to just feel comfortable, if you want to feel, be able to sleep at night, why was I not taught how to effectively sleep? And the value of sleep in school.
Fascinating.
We just glazed over that.
Yeah, it just became something that you just figure out on your own.
Yeah, and I mean, I know the reason why, because our teachers don't know.
Yep. Yeah.
Teachers aren't, that they're not in that position to be experts of driving their human suits.
Right. Yeah.
Some are, and they're inevitably going to instill that within their students, and most students will probably grow up and say, man, out of all my classes, Mr. Capabianca or whatever, he was a teacher that I had, he didn't instill that in me, but it's just an interesting name that came to my mind. If you're listening, Mr. Capabianca, you were my social studies teacher, I think. But that person, he was actually quite embodied. But those students would walk away and say, man, that teacher, they really stuck with me.
Right. They left me something that I'm using. I'm applying.
It's
every day.
What subject did they teach? I don't remember.
Yeah.
It's oh, okay, I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
those are those are the things that help shape and shift us into the best life of all time. Yeah, it's I feel that.
Yeah,
and the more information we can get out there, the more education, the more knowledge, the more awareness, the more chance we got, I believe, in living the best versions of ourselves. And so I want to thank you for coming on to Wake the Fake Up. And everyone, listen to this guy. He's got it. I mean, he's found a recipe that I feel is easy to understand and easy to apply to your everyday life.
Thanks.
Yeah, of course. That's what it is.
The intention.
Yeah. And it's not doesn't have to be some sophisticated algorithmic equation. It could just be rooted in your true authenticity. Yeah. So I appreciate you. This was fun. Let's do it again. Let's catch some waves. Let's hit the jungles. Let's hit the ceremony. Let's go berserk.
I'm down.
Yeah.
Berserkers.
Yeah, we were berserkers. Absolutely.
Let's hit it.
Let's go.
All right. Thank you, brother. I appreciate the time. Man.
Gratitude, family, for tuning in today, and deep reverence to you all for dedicating your time to seeking knowledge and truth. This is what it's all about. You can find more of my podcasts on Spotify, iTunes, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, and Google Podcasts. You can also find this on my website at wakethefakeup.com. Life is all about momentum. Please leave a review so I can hear your experiences and share with your friends, family, and anyone who needs to hear this message. This is a revolution of consciousness. This is just the beginning. I am all in. I'll be back next week for another epic conversation. Stay tuned, family. Big love.